This is No Days Off, a whitetail strategy series from the Southern Collective. For the next 6 weeks, we're dropping episodes every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, built to get your mind locked in on mature bucks, summer scouting, and the mindset it really takes to kill one of these jokers in the Southeast. Now, I know it's hot in the summertime and it's tough to think about being in the woods, but if you're waiting for fall, you're already behind. Let's get to work.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of No Days Off. This is a live on social media. If you haven't figured this out yet, on Thursdays, most Thursdays, we're going live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join us, harass us, throw all kinds of comments into the chat. Try and throw us off to the best of your abilities. Good luck. But I am glad to be back on the mic. And I'm going to just say something. So in that intro, y'all heard, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Well, let me tell you something. The last 2 weeks have been anything other than reliable for us. Our podcast host has really had some issues. We tried to go live with the one and only guest tonight last week, and it was just like, it was one of those situations where we said to the world, no days off. And they went, let's see how serious you are about that. And every week we got out all of our episodes, regardless of what day they were on. We got videos recorded. So I appreciate everybody who wrote in saying, hey guys, the episodes are missing. We knew that. We were working on it to the best of our abilities, but we're live. It looks like we solved the problems, and I'm glad to be back sitting here with a man who is on vacation. This is a theme for the No Days Off, is that these guys are so serious that even on their vacation time, they're willing to look their wives and their children in the face and say, sorry about it. You're a second-class citizen because deer hunting is right around the corner. So, Clayton Bahn, dude, appreciate you joining me yet again.
What's up? How are you? Good to see you again.
Dude, this is going to be, and you're clear, you're crisp, I can hear you. This is amazing. I'm going to be honest with you. When I hit go, it just kind of sat there for a second, and I was like, oh, God, if this does 2 weeks in a row, like, he's going to be convinced I'm scuttling things. But, man, I am glad. Here's the thing. So this is going to start off sounding like it's an insult, but it's not. I don't mean it this way at all. So just ride the wave with me. But there are people you hear from certain times of the year. You've got buddies that are in your circle, like different little bubbles, and I don't mean the guys that like show up in the like a week before the season, like, hey man, are we gonna hunt this year? That's not what I'm talking about. But you and I, our bubbles that overlap, it's whitetail deer. It's a little bit of college football. It's whitetail deer. And when I start hearing from you, I know it's time to get serious. It's time to get locked in because deer are right around the corner. Because you benefit from the greatest state ever invented, being able to hunt starting what, August 15th?
In some parts of the state. So, for example, where I'm at right now is down on the coastal area, south of Charleston, South Carolina. So, in basically like this quarter of the state, rifle season full bore comes in August 15th, and it's buck only for the first like month of the season, right? And then I think when gun season comes in for the rest of the state, and don't go off of this regulation wise, but I don't live here, so I don't know exactly, but you get there's 4 or 5 weeks where you can shoot buck only, right? So you get the opportunity to kill a velvet buck, and then it goes into kind of full deer season where you can shoot bucks, does, whatever. Now where I live is kind of like in the northwestern part of the state that's called the upstate. So for us, archery season comes in September 15th, runs until October 11th, and then October 11th, rifle season comes in full bore. And to your point, Walter, 100%, South Carolina's got some of the most liberal regulations of just about anywhere, right? You can kill 5 antlered deer in a season, pretty much unlimited does. If you really wanted to hunt in South Carolina from August 15th through January 1st, you could. And what's kind of unique about it is you can chase the rut across the state too. So, similar but different to like in Alabama or Mississippi, where you've got some much later rut pockets, some much earlier rut pockets. You can definitely do that here. There's certain peak weeks that I see, where I live, where it's like October 20th to 27th are like the days that I want to be in the woods where I live. But I've hunted down here in the lower part of the state, more like October 10th, October 15th, and everything's full bore. And then up in the mountains, you can get, Thanksgiving time frame, things really going nuts as well.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing. So everybody talks about like they oftentimes flock to like why the South kind of sucks for deer. And don't get me wrong, Missouri is a better place to go kill a deer. Wisconsin is probably a better place to go kill a deer. But there is something to be said for if you're the weekend warrior, being able to maybe within a 200-mile radius of you be able to find pockets of deer that are rutting at any given time. And South Carolina's like that, Florida's like that, Georgia is sort of like that. It's not quite as pronounced. Alabama's like that. It depends on the day. Um, that's a first right there. That is a first. Clayton is not only on the show, but he's also like pumping the show right now as well. But yeah, man, I think it's an awesome thing. So I'm jealous because for basically, I mean, your deer season is under a month away. College football's right at a month away for you. RIP LSU's coming to town early on. How you feeling about that?
Hey,
Feeling good?
way too early prediction there. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think Clemson's offense this year is going to be something that it was not last year. We've beefed up the wide receiver core. Cade Klubnik's high in the running for the Heisman, likely first overall NFL draft next year. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Brian Kelly does not have a great record in the real Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. Back to the Hurricane game when we snuffed out Malik Zaire's goal line run to
Malik Zaire.
take us
Wow.
to the national championship in 2016 and win our first one since 1981. So I like our odds.
Dude, you're taking me way back there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gonna be great. Opening weekend, whenever you have those iconic clash ups between like those B plus teams, it's always great because it knocks the dust off of everything. But
Hey, I'm glad we got another week between when we tried this last time and now my mustache is better.
yeah, it's profound. It's you got the rut stash ready. So, well, dude, listen. I think we've done a really good job on this series so far and let me just say this. You guys throw questions at us if you're new to this. Joey says go Vols. Is it too soon, Joey, to already be excited for next year? And by I don't mean like the upcoming fall, but anyways, we'll leave that right there. Uh, we've done a great job on this series about talking about no days off, as in like the off-season grind, and that's definitely a part of it. We've touched very briefly, very little about what it's like to have an in-season grind. And when you and I were kind of spitballing about what we wanted to talk about, uh, I feel like you got a great grind that encompasses a whole lot about what happened last year and kind of what's going on this year as well. And so I don't know that we've ever had a guest come on and talk about what it's like to balance taking a kid hunting and finding success for yourself in the same season. Those two things tend to be like mutually exclusive. But a good buddy of ours, Clay Harper, seems like every deer that gets killed by Clay gets killed by Deke, right? Like it's kind of an all or nothing thing. How do you balance that? And I'm asking to learn because I got a 4-year-old that's going to be asking me to take him here soon.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. It's not really a challenge. I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but like it's definitely a different like you're stacking your priorities in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I look into the rearview mirror from last year, right, and I'm like, hey, how did I approach the season differently? Knowing that like my first goal was to get my son his first deer ever. I don't think I approached things really any differently. So, just to kind of paint the picture of my style of hunting, what I do, it really, I think I dabble into about every lane that a lot of the guys listening to the show dabble in. First and foremost, I hunt at home, right? So I live in the upstate of South Carolina. I hunt a mixture of private land, a club that I'm in, uh, national forest land, Army Corps land, and then without fail, I'm travel for 8 to 10 days in November to somewhere outside of the South, um, and then maybe even a couple days after the peak of the rut days, like Thanksgiving time frame, December time frame. I'm fortunate enough to be able to get away and do that. So, I kind of look at it in the way a lot of guys do, in the sense of like I've got my home turf, I've got my travel turf, try to go experience different things, predominantly do it with my bow. But I digress. Look, going into last year, like I knew, all right, hey, my son's 8 years old. he's talking about, for the first time, he's talking about wanting to go shoot a deer, right? He'd been with me a couple times. He'd watched me shoot a couple does throughout the years. He'd sat in my lap while we shot a turkey together. He'd seen these things, he'd experienced these things, but for the first time ever, he was like, I want to pull the trigger, right? So that was really cool, right? That was like the pivotal event where it was like, hey, things are different this year, right? So first and foremost, I'm like, hey, all right, I got to set this kid up for success. So really, I went about things really no differently than I traditionally do for myself. Now, looking into it a little bit further, like I had to do some things differently. So I'm a saddle hunter, right? I'm climbing trees, pretty much different tree every time I hunt. That's me. Um, Obviously, that wasn't going to work for an 8-year-old. So, a lot of it went into, hey, how am I going to prep for the season in the same way that I normally do to have that level of success, but set a kid up, an 8-year-old nonetheless, up for success at the same time. So, you know, backtracking back into July of last year, it was like, hey, how am I going to get this kid to shoot a gun straight? What gun is he going to shoot? What caliber is he going to shoot? So long story short there, I trick out my AR platform to where I can basically put it in a vise on a tripod inside a ground blind. We go out and we shoot it a couple times. He's killer within like 75, 80 yards. I mean, baseball sized groups, if not smaller, anytime he shoots. So I check the box on that, right? That was the first big do out of like, is he good enough? Can he get this done? And then after that, I pretty much just went about things in my normal way, which Walter, you and I did a podcast years ago where we talked about, Hog Johnson of your area, right? So the biggest buck walk in the woods in your area, right? How do you get on him? How do you find him? I went about my normal way of casting a wide net for Hog Johnson, which for me is if I'm on private land, right, and I'm in July, I'm putting corn or mineral on the ground, and I'm taking an inventory of who there is running around, right? If I'm on national forest in South Carolina, I'm running a wide net when it comes to cameras. Um, not this year by any means, but last year before, like we're talking 20 plus cameras scattered about thousands of acres, trying to figure out what kind of deer I want to hunt. So back to getting the kid into it, on the hunt club specifically multiple corn piles, trying to find a deer worthwhile shooting. And basically went about it that normal way, right? So once we kind of narrowed it down to a couple of spots that would be good for him, like areas that I knew we could access, we went ahead and started clearing out some shooting lanes. We put up 2 different ground blinds, brushed them in. And what was cool about this whole process was I brought him along for the ride in all of this, right? So he's out there in the late July, sweating, getting covered in chiggers, getting hot, the deal.
Yeah.
So he came along with me. I specifically remember one point, him with a rake, raking out leaves from where we were gonna put the blind and being like, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, I'm tired. I'm like, hey dude, it'll all be worth it in a month.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, about a month goes by, and September 14th here was Youth Day last year, and specifically on I think going into last season, I think I had about 4 different good bucks pegged. 2 of them on my hunt club, and then 2 of them on Sumter National Forest. Long story short, we ended up, obviously on Youth Day hunting my club. Very easy to do with a kid. We were able to park the truck, only have maybe a 200-yard walk to the blind, right? Keeping things fun is crucial. So basically got him out to the blind. Had a bachelor group of bucks kind of work in this area like clockwork. And we did a morning hunt, which normally I don't like to do a whole lot, that early, especially hunting over bait. And, the goal for him was, hey, we're not going to we don't need to go out and kill a 115-inch 8-pointer. Anything with antlers is going to be cool for this kid's first deer. And so morning passes by, it gets to be about 8 a.m. or so, and there's either like a spike or a fork horn comes in, and we're sitting in the blind. We watch it walk all the way into the area that we were expecting him to come. And so I get my son lined up on the gun. he's sitting behind. I'm like, hey, you see it, buddy? You see it? He's like, yeah, I see it. I see it. I'm like, all right, put it right behind his shoulder, like your typical dad on TV or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that thought to myself as this was all going down. I was like, man, I sound like one of these goons on TV. Um, but long story
You
short,
watch too much YouTube, man.
exactly. Yeah, he puts the crosshairs on his shoulder. I can tell he's lined up. And I'm like, all right, go ahead and shoot. And I'm like about to say shoot, and the gun just goes, pow! And the deer just runs off, like doesn't act hit whatsoever. And I'm like, I don't think you hit him. Like, dude, were you on him? Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, I'm positive I was where I needed to be. Um, so he's like, hey, like what do you mean I missed? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, so we went out, we looked for blood and whatnot, and no blood, no hair, no nothing. Kind of look around a little bit, nothing. I'm like, dude, I think you missed. So I'm like, maybe you hit something. So we go back to the blind and start looking around, and sure enough, there's probably a half-inch wide cedar branch from a cedar I'd cut down that was sticking up. And I go back behind the gun, and I'm like looking through it to where the deer was, and I'm like, from my angle, that branch is 6 inches below the trajectory line of the bullet.
Yeah.
From his angle, that the barrel of that 6.8 was lined up
Oh.
perfectly with that branch. He cut it in half. So I saw it and I was like, hey, dude, look at this. Like, you hit the branch. Like, hey, no big deal. You missed the deer. Yada yada. We'll come back this afternoon. So that day, my buddy, he's a Marine Corps fighter pilot, he and his wife came up and they were staying with us, hanging out. So I was like, hey, Chris, you want to go and go sit in the blind with me in Hudson tonight? So we went back to the same blind. The evenings had always been better for buck movement there, and it was buck only at the time. So we get back in the blind that evening. It's me, my son, and my buddy Chris, and we're sitting in the blind, and it's getting to be about a half hour before dark. And all of a sudden, Chris grabs my shoulder. Like, I feel this hand on my shoulder, and he's like, big buck coming, big buck coming. And I can't see it because of where I was sitting, kind of tucked into the corner. And he got within about 80 yards, and I could see him coming. It was a real nice 8-pointer, like 115, 118-inch type 8-pointer, which obviously, for us is a good deer.
Yeah.
And especially if you're an 8-year-old boy trying to kill your first deer, like, can you imagine something better, man? Like,
No.
I mean, my first deer was like a button head and a doe and then a 6-pointer. And then about 15 years later, I started killing big bucks, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just running this through my head. I'm like, man, my son's going to kill this whopper for his first one, and he's going to be ruined. Long story short, big buck hangs up about 20 yards from the opening. And a spike comes in, and then I see another buck coming in, and I'm like, hey, it's not a spike, but it's a pretty good 6-pointer. And I'm like, he's got a big body, looks good. Anyway, he walks right out, stands square, perfect in the middle of the shooting lane, and I'm like, buddy, are you lined up on him? He's like, yeah, right behind the shoulder. I didn't even have to tell him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shoot him when you're ready. And all of a sudden, just, pow! The thing mule kicks. And my buddy was filming it too, which was cool on his phone. So we got the phone, the phone video, the buck mule kicking, and he runs off. And here's what I wasn't prepared for, Walter. Like, we wait 15 minutes. It gets dark, and we go out there. We basically walk up to where the deer was standing when my son shot him. And so he's shooting a 6.8 SPC. So it's a 120 grain bullet, pretty fast.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt, like, he'd hit him where he needed to hit him just from the video that we had watched. And there's no blood, there's no hair. And I'm like, hey, not a big deal. Like, I know he aced this thing. Like, we were 70 yards away from the deer. Like, this bullet just had to have zipped through him. So we end up following him and just kind of like looking blindly for, doing large, small half circles to big half circles to bigger half circles to bigger half circles, just based on where I knew he had ran. And after about the third or fourth like loop that we'd walked, my son was like, yeah, we're not going to find him. Let's go.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, man, I've done this one too many times. Like, you smoked him. He's dead. You did everything you needed to do. There's just no blood. So we made a couple additional loops, and then all of a sudden in my headlamp, I saw a white belly about 30 yards in front of us. And I was like, dude, there's your deer. So we got to run up to him and go pick him up. And my son had absolutely aced him. I mean, double lunged him perfectly. Deer made it like 60 yards into
Yeah.
some thick stuff
Yeah.
and was down. So that was super cool, and that was that's how I kicked off my season last year was, approaching things normally, but then like the added layers of including a kid in it that doesn't really understand what's going on or what you're doing, um, and then getting to the point of like putting it all in action,
Hmm.
but then the really like the biggest thing being keeping it fun. Like
Sure.
that's challenging for me as a diehard of like I want to go out there and not step on a leaf that's going to make noise, and I want to do everything perfectly, and I want to make my entry perfect and get in from downwind perfect. But a lot of that went into the prep work of setting up these spots in terms of like knowing where I could get with him and where we could get away with making maybe a little bit extra noise. But
Right.
just like, when it got to the point of getting out there and getting him in the blind, like, man, I'd taken him several times and like I'd fallen victim to the trap of like, he needs to be quiet like me. He needs to act
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
me, that's been doing this for 20 years. Um, and it became so much more fun when I just took that layer off and was just like, hey, we're gonna go out here, have fun, and like I want my son to learn a few things about the woods. I want him to see some deer. I want him to like learn, why we're so addicted to this. And once I kind of took those normal guards off that I have on for
Hmm.
me and like expectations for myself, it
Hmm.
became way more fun. And like getting him involved from the beginning in terms of like setting up the blind, dumping out the corn, checking the trail cameras, like that that was the game changer where it was like we're not just going hunting for me to kill a deer, we're going hunting to like make this an experience and have
Right.
fun. It's like for anybody out there listening that's got young kids, like go in, and like I've told this to a bunch of people, like go into this with just zero expectations other than like having fun and like spending time with your kid. Like I
Yeah.
was
You
super
know,
guilty of not doing that to begin with.
yeah, and this is something I've tried so hard. Like, I would rather not take Walden into the woods than, like, in the wrong mindset go, right? Like, there's these, so,
Yeah.
like, we got woods right behind the house. I got 10, 15 probably different deer that are coming by that corn feeder all the time. And, there's a chance I could kill one of those. And, like, last year, I don't know, at 3, maybe that's a little too early. I don't know. But like we would go out there and it's like, here come the snacks and everything. And
Yeah.
he would make so much noise. I'm like, hey, you gotta be quiet. Hey, you gotta be quiet. You could just kind of see like a little tarnish on the fun. And I'm like, screw it, dude. Like point at and scream at whatever it is you want to, right? Because we're only
Yeah.
gonna be out here for about 6 minutes and 37 seconds before you get bored. Like this is remarkably low stakes, you know? And so last year we had that snow come through. We had snow on the ground for 7 days straight. And
Jeez.
the coolest thing ever, besides the snow, like the core memory that I have, is we went back there to the woods, and it's January, it's late January, everything's mainly lost its leaves, the woods are way more open, and Walden's like, "What are these?" And he's pointing to deer tracks, and he is just like bloodhounding these deer trails all through the woods, and he's wanting to go onto the other property. I'm like, "We can't go over there, that's not really our property. Like we've gone so far at this point," and he's like, "Dude, what do you mean?" I'm like, he goes, "But there's deer over there." I'm like, yeah, there's deer over there, but like we can't go over there. And he's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we doing? I was like, oh man. And so like that was the point where I was like, okay, we're doing something here. And so now he's got his own bow, and it's one of those like Bear Apprentice, those little like faux
Yeah.
recurve combo deals. And he shoots it in the backyard. He's like, I'm gonna shot a deer. I'm gonna shot a deer this year. I'm like, yeah, buddy, yeah, you are. And so we're gonna go out there and we'll sit for another 7 minutes and 37 seconds,
Yeah.
and have our fun, and that'll be it. But dude, I was looking. It's funny you talked about the blood because I'm looking at the picture, and I do this thing. I'm ADD. I have to like see things as we go. So whenever somebody talks about something, I immediately go to their Facebook and I try to find the pictures. There's no blood on that deer, like hardly at
No,
all.
very
It's
little.
wild.
There was a little bit like right where he died. He ran into a tree, and
Hmm.
there was blood on a tree at thigh height where he'd run into it and probably staggered against it a little bit, and then we backtrailed the blood from it a little ways, and there was hardly anything. But yeah, I mean that gun did a great job at that range, right? The exit
Hmm.
hole was like I could barely fit my pinky in it, type deal. So it makes sense that there was no blood, and he coughed out a little bit, like right there where he died, but. Somebody threw a comment in here about the 450 Bushmaster. Um, yeah, there you go. And that's where we'll go next. Like the 6.8 was great for him at 7, 8 years old because there was just zero recoil. And I know the 450s don't have a ton. I shot actually I went on a trip to Mississippi and shot a doe in Mississippi with a 350 Legend, zero recoil, but the hole on that thing was like 3 times the size of this 6.8. Actually, funny story about that trip. Parker tried to kill me in a John boat in the middle of January on a big body of water in Mississippi. I will not forget that anytime soon. It was about 10 degrees outside, and there were giant whitecaps, and a 14, 15-foot John boat doesn't get along with those.
He told me about this story. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I killed a deer with the 350 Legend on that one. So I think this year we're on vacation now and then back Sunday. So I think I'm gonna go and have my son shoot the 350 Legend on Sunday and start prepping for that. So kind of same deal this year, right? Like we're running the same plays that we ran last year, casting a wide net, trying to find the right buck. And then we'll roll right into it. Set up some ground blinds 3 or 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
Brush him in. Same deal as last year. Like that's kind of the plan, right? To get him his. The goal is right. I told him this the other day. I was like, hey, this year, like, hey, you killed a 6-pointer last year. Like it's got to be a bigger deer than that this year. Like if it's bigger, you can shoot it. Good deal.
Yeah.
Which bigger could be a bigger 6-pointer or a 8-pointer or a 10-pointer or whatever, right? Just like, hey, dude, something bigger, and then if you want to shoot a doe later on, by all means, like, dude, let's go find some food.
How do you balance that though, right? So like, what if he like just was like shaking uncontrollably on a deer that was smaller? Would that still be like a deal breaker for you, or do you feel like is he still young enough that like allowing him to enjoy it for whatever it is that
No, that's a good question. I honestly think like he would be like, no, I want to get one the same size or bigger than I did last year, because he's like that with fish. He's like, hey, I don't want to stop fishing until I catch one bigger than last time, right? So I have a feeling like he's completely on board with it. Now, if he was ooey gooey on a spike that comes out, sit one of the season and he wants to shoot it, like, dude, it'd be a second deer, like, let's go, pull the trigger, buddy. Yeah. I don't care. And what's cool is like the club that I'm in is, it's guys that are, most of them are, we hear a lot about it on podcasts like this, guys that are in clubs that have a bunch of old dudes in them that, will only sit the club stands, and they don't climb and they don't do anything other than hunt over their same feeder week in and week out. I'm in a club like that, right? So the guys, I will say, are like super supportive of, youth shooting whatever they want to shoot. They're super supportive. We actually run something every year at the club, and I'm a veteran, but like I have nothing to do with them having set this up and have it running. But they do a disabled veterans hunt. Yeah, I just saw this comment. So my club does a disabled veterans hunt through the South Carolina DNR every year. It's like we let those people shoot whatever they want. But there's some good deer on the property that I hunt. I killed about 125-inch deer, and for that, that area of South Carolina where I'm at, like that you can't ask for anything more. So for G95, whoever just asked for about exit 66 off of 26, super familiar with that area. I've hunted all around Joanna, managed and ran a club in Joanna for a long time, and then hunted a ton of the national forests in that world. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. So at this point, I'm curious. Was there any like correlating thought to like how this would impact the rest of your year? Because my first thought would be like, okay, he's killed his first deer. Are you going to be able to like leave him at home, right? Because like my son right now, and this is like my strategy for this upcoming year, and I haven't even talked to my wife about this, but it's like I'm probably hunting mornings. I'm gonna have my preference of the mornings, because if I try and leave and my son's awake, I'm probably not going to make it away. Like it's just not going to work. So. Was there ever any concern about that, or how did you balance that?
Not really. So I've got at this point he's 9, and I've got a 6.5-year-old as well. And like, I don't know if I just have a super understanding wife, or like I've built my foundation right or whatever. But since I've had kids, I've probably hunted more. Now I've also gotten like way more into it and a lot better at it, and figured a lot of things out in that time. but it was never a fear of like, balancing between taking him and taking me. Like I still feel like I've kept good boundaries between like what makes me tick, which makes me a better dad and husband at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And then like what I need to do to balance family life with it. So like I know I've got to dedicate a certain amount of time to myself in the fall to make me right and whole. And then I know that there's a balance with taking the kid, taking my son or the kid or my daughter or what have you, and also like being present and at home. So I don't know. After opening day was pretty easy because youth day was the first day that we could be in the woods, right? So it was like September 14th was youth rifle day. They can kill with whatever as long as it's an antlered deer. And then opening day of bow season was the next day. So like for as an example, I was like, hey, I'm taking Hudson on Saturday. We're going, and Sunday evening, I will be in a tree with my bow, right?
Hmm.
So it was like a clear line from the beginning of like that was the plan, irregardless of the result. Now we got lucky enough and got to shoot at 2 deer on Saturday. Killed the second one. He got to see the whole butchering process, hang him up in a tree, gut him, butcher him, quarter him, hang him. Did all that ourselves. Got him bloody, of course. That was great. And then the next day I was in the tree. That was the plan from all along. So after that, he'd killed his deer, and I was just gonna leave it up to him of like, hey, dude, if you want to go again, let me know if you want to go again, right? If not, daddy's going, you
That's
know.
right.
Um, so we had a good time with it, and he sat with me a couple other times throughout the year, but like kind of after shooting that first deer, he was like, hey, I'm good. We
Yeah.
had we made the whole thing into snack sticks, which he took to school in his lunch
Yes.
every day from you know early October through Christmas, and by the time he'd eaten all of them, like
Yeah.
that was what he wanted to do with it, so we did it. It was cool.
So let's pivot. So you've got your kid a deer. Now it's time for you. I know deep down the moment he pulled that trigger, it was not long after your immediate thought was, okay, it's my turn. Like, so how did you pivot from that?
Well, the next evening, I went and climbed in the tree and shot a doe. No, but to answer your question, I know where you're going with this. Is
Yeah.
let's backtrack about 4 months earlier, 5 months earlier. I had found out that I'd drawn Zone 5 Iowa.
Right.
So I had been putting in for, I think that was 5 years, and then we drew on the 6th year or something like that, for Zone 5 in Iowa, and obviously that's like kind of the bow hunter's dream is to get to that point where you draw the tag and you go out and you get drawn for that. And basically I was at that point where I'd been out there a couple times scouting and got drawn, and it came to be that point where I went out there and got to go out, luckily enough, like about a week before bow season came in, and hung a bunch of cameras, got ready for it, knew that week was coming at the end of October, first week in November, when we were able to go
You're
out
good.
there. And so long story short, get to go out there the first, second day of November. I headed out there, had some great deer on camera, went out with two buddies, and it started. So we had the 2nd through the 10th to hunt, I believe. Well, push comes to shove, and I came down with pneumonia on the way out there. Didn't have a voice, high fever, not
Couldn't
feeling
breathe.
good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry. I don't know.
You don't know?
No. Sorry, got interrupted here.
You're good, buddy.
Um,
So you got
I
pneumonia.
hope you saw my mom dancing in the background
Yeah, I
there. They
did.
were
I did.
asking for melatonin for the kids. Um,
I love it.
so, yeah, at any rate, got out there, really, really sick, hunted for a week, kind of let down, not based
Mhm.
on like what I saw out there, what was going on, but more so like what I was able to physically do because I was so damn sick. Like it was that bad. Um, my buddy Justin shot a really nice deer, 140 class deer out there. I missed on, I want to say like my 5th day of the hunt. missed a 150 or 160 type 10-pointer at 23 yards, burned into my head. I don't miss at 23 yards. Like, I practice all summer for a reason, and that comes into the
Yeah.
story a little bit later on. But miss it at 23 yards, 9 o'clock in the morning, biggest year of my life standing there in front of me, did it dirty, did exactly what I'd drawn up to plan. Took a page out of Parker's book and kayaked up a canal about 100 yards, got out, walked another 100 yards, climbed a hill, got up in the tree. You know the deal. Like,
Oh, yeah.
everything went perfect, like 100% according to plan. Other than that morning, I was so sick I'd forgotten my saddle, so that didn't help. I'd forgotten my binocular harness with my rangefinder, so that didn't help. And I'd also forgotten my primary release, so that didn't help. And then I'm
Jeez.
also like extremely ill, which is and the reason that I forget all these things is because I'm super sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And literally all the cards unfold in the perfect way, and then all of a sudden I screw it up and I blow it. That was rough, right? You want to talk about a low of lows? Like, it was a deer I'd gotten on camera, a scout I'd spotted, or scouted. Everything was perfect, right? And then I just blow it at 23 yards, and I'm like, how do I make that mistake? Like, I've missed a lot of deer. I've screwed up on a lot of deer over the years, but like in the last 5 years, like I can't say.
What do you
I've
think
done
it was? Like, looking back, what do you think you did?
So he was downhill from me, on a fairly moderately steep grade, and they always look further away if they're downhill from you. So that was one of them. The other one was I didn't have my rangefinder, and then the other one is like, dude, I was just in a trance. Like, I was not right. Right, I was ill, and had a fever and all sorts of other stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
guys, I don't recommend this. Like, listen to your body. Do what you're supposed to
Yeah.
do.
There were signs.
There were a few signs, right? And forgetting my saddle was certainly one of them. So I'm
Yeah.
literally like sitting in a .5 about 8 feet off the ground with nothing holding me to the tree, and like half conscious, like not a good situation, not the situation you want to be in, right? Long story short, like, he comes in, I kind of like came out of this like comatose panic that I like state that I was in, into this like panic state of like, the giant is here and I don't know what to do. Like, I was acting like I'd never been there before, which I hadn't ever been there before on a 150 in
Right.
Iowa, so that's fair.
Right.
Long story short, though, like, the other part of this was I had somehow lost a release on the first day of my hunt. So I had my primary release, and then I went and bought a backup release because I had lost my primary, which I had a duplicate of as my secondary. So now my secondary became my primary, which I left in my bino harness. And then I bought this backup one. It was the closest thing I could find at an archery store, short of like a wrist style release. And it's one of those true fires where you actually have to push your thumb forward to get it to go off. And like, I'd shot a couple times with it, and I was good enough to kill with it. And I guess in the heat of the moment, I went back to the like, hey, I gotta pull back, and I'm like pulling back on this thing, and it's not going off, and it's not going off, and I'm finally like, oh yeah, I gotta push forward, and I push forward. Except I guess when I pushed forward, I was freaking out at that point.
Yeah.
And because my release wasn't going off, and all of a sudden just sent the arrow, right over his back.
Jeez.
And he ran off about 40 yards and stopped there and proceeded to just stand still for like 5 minutes while I watched him. So that was cool. And then, to make matters even worse, about 5 hours later, I climbed out of that tree, went back to the truck, got my bino harness with my rangefinder and whatnot. And it's about 12:30, and I walk across the road into some cut cornfields and climb up. Found this sick spot. One of the brothers out there probably listening to this had the same tree that I climbed, prepped by somebody that is a mobile hunter at some point in the past. And I climb up in this tree, I get set, and lo and behold, I'm sitting up in this tree for like 30 minutes, and normally like my bow comes up first thing as soon as I get up to the tree, right? Like all of us.
Right. Right.
I'm so dejected and out of it at this point, just feeling like just so terrible that I just leave my bow on the ground. I'm just like sitting there with my head in my hands, like, man, I just walked 400 yards. I'm about to die. I just climbed this tree. This is
Yeah.
terrible. And thinking about I'm going to eat something. And about that time, as I'm thinking about like, ooh, I could eat these meat sticks in my pack, I look down into this river bottom and this doe just comes screaming out of it. And literally, as I see the doe sprinting, the first thought in my head is, oh shit, there's a big buck chasing her. And lo and behold, like she runs up, and as I see her running towards me, I'm pulling up my bow and it like gets stuck in a bush. And she runs past me and stops about 15 yards from me and is looking straight at me as I'm like yanking my bow to get
Yeah.
it out of this bush that it's stuck in. Looks at me, looks at my bow, looks up at me, takes off. I'm like, damn, it's just any moment until this buck's behind her. Well, lo and behold, about 5 seconds later, the doe's gone. And I look back the way that she had come from as I'm still trying to pull this bow up out of the bush it's caught in. And here comes a 150, another 150 plus, running through this tall grass, runs right to where that doe was, 10 to 15 yards from me, and stops and is looking at my bow as I'm pulling it up out of this bush I've finally gotten it out of. I get the bow in my hand. Buck's still standing there 10 yards away. I've got my hand on the arrow in the quiver getting it out. And he lets out this rip roaring and just takes off after that doe. As I have my bow in my hand, the arrow is literally just getting knocked and he's gone. Um,
Oh,
that was all in the same day as when I missed this first one at 23 yards. So let's just say the first 6 days I spent in Iowa were pretty rough. Um, so a few more hunts go by. No big shooters in range, but saw a ton of deer. It was a great place. If you can go. And then I end up going home. It takes me twice as long to get home as it took me to get there because I had to stop and sleep for 12 hours because I was still so sick.
yeah.
Recharge the batteries for 2 weeks or so. And my wife, bless her heart, could tell, like, she's like, hey, I see this eating on you. Like, I know this is a once in a 6-7 year thing. Like,
Yeah.
if you need to go back, go back. So long story short, like, my two buddies that I had gone with originally, one had tagged out. The other one, there was no chance he was going back. Um, End up connecting with a guy that I had met on the internet, and I love telling my wife this, that I met a friend on the internet, and we ended up staying in a hotel room together. It's great. But anyway, Chad Goth, if you're listening to this, had a hell of a time with you. Our schedules end up working out almost perfectly. We end up sharing a hotel room, um, helping each other, on a hunt we both had about 4 days. It was both of our second times out there. And Chad ended up killing a deer on that Saturday. It was, I think, the weekend before Thanksgiving. So I got to help him get his buck, big beautiful 10-pointer, out of the woods. And then the next morning, I ended up killing a 160-ish 10-pointer with split G2s and split G3s and giant brow tines and everything you go to Iowa for. So it all worked out after a very long journey. Let's just say that.
Give me one moment, please. I
Yeah,
don't know
man.
what just made that noise outside my window, but we're gonna figure it out real quick. Hang on.
Probably a Florida Panther. So for everybody else still listening, that second trip out there, I ended up flying. I had some frequent flyer points from work, so all I had to do was split a hotel room with a guy I met on the internet and rent a truck. And it was weird traveling, not in my own vehicle, but having to pack all of my hunting shit into a suitcase was really weird. So I flew back out to Iowa with a big suitcase and a bow case, and that was really it. So I rented a truck, had a suitcase full of, at that point it was November 22nd, 23rd. So I had all my puffy hunting clothes packed around my bow, and then a suitcase with a tethered platform, backpack, other hunting clothes, you know, the other necessities, and just hit the road. And like frequent flyer points and, rental truck. I went back out there for 4 or 5 days for probably sub $500. It's pretty
Oh,
cool.
that's insane.
Yeah, and ended
That's
up killing
insane.
on that trip. So then it turned out to be a rodeo after shooting the deer. Um, I'm half mile or so back into a public piece, all downhill, of course, going in, all uphill going out. And I got to thinking to myself, like, man, I've never caped the deer out in the field. I'd much rather hang this thing up to cape it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have a deer cart, and it was on a Sunday morning, so there's like nothing around that would be open. The nearest Walmart's like an hour away. I'm like, I gotta find a deer cart. So long story short, I ended up getting put in touch with Ted from the hunting public, and I ended up borrowing his deer cart to get this 275-pound buck out of the woods. After a little bit of back and forth, so was able to borrow a deer cart, get this guy out by myself, hang him up, do the thing, caped him, quartered him up, gave the meat to a guy out there that I had met. Uh, Took the deer to a taxidermist out in Iowa. All these things that you got to think about when you fly somewhere to hunt.
Yeah.
I never thought
Yeah.
about before, but you figure them out pretty quick, and it's really not that complicated.
That's killer, dude. I think the part about all of this is like how quickly you could have thrown in on that, right? Like clearly your mental load that on that second deer, right? Like had you been present minded, right? A healthy Clayton Bahn would have never had that bow at the base of the tree.
Never. I mean, even on that first one, a normal
Right.
me is like, dude, if it's in within 30 yards, like I'm putting my 20 pin on it, and I instinctually know, like I
Mm-hmm.
got to hold a little bit higher, a little bit low,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sending it. There's zero hesitation there. Like I've got that all figured out enough. I've shot enough deer with a bow and arrow that like that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Period. Short
Exactly.
of like hitting a branch, which has happened. Stuff like that, but
Yeah.
not a gross miss like from a error. Like that.
Right.
That is foreign.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for the fact that you just kept going. Like I can tell you right now, in seasons past, um, in seasons past, I could see situations where I would have just not gone. Right, I'll talk. I am like my mental that little dialogue that internal monologue that you have that's like just sleep in or just whatever. Like I could have easily seen an arena in which I sleep in or I'm not going back out,
Yeah.
right? Like what was that for you? Was there any of that? Was there, or was it just like I'm going to just go and hope something happens?
Like that's one of the beauties of going on an out of state hunt is that you're there for a purpose, and you're there with a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And to use your tagline, right, when I'm on an out of state trip, it's no days off, right? It is
Right.
a grind. That's what I'm there to do. A lot of guys talk about you hear through social media a lot or whatever, like the fabled wives tales, like the husband's going out to get drunk and play poker at deer camp or fish camp. Like
Mm-hmm.
with me and my group, like there's none of that, right? We go
Right.
to hunt. Like we have a good time. We'll drink a few beers and celebrate if somebody kills one, but like at the end of the day, like we're there to hunt. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're doing. We're grinding. So being out of state and even being sick as a dog and screwing up on two of the biggest deer of my life in one day, like there's no there's no throwing in the towel when you're that far. When you've gone through that muscle movement, there's no throwing in the towel. So that was on my side. And then between when I had the bad day, let's call it the bad day, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I
Mm-hmm.
had the bad day and when I actually killed the buck, there was a 2.5 week period where I went home and got on some good antibiotics and some good medicine and kind of got right. So by the time I went back out there, I was in tip top. I wouldn't say I was in tip top shape, but I was in
Right.
much condition than the first go around. Like I was still coughing and still had shit in my lungs, but nothing like the first 10
Yeah.
days that I've been out there. But the recharge of the batteries was great, and then there's also the you're away from home. You don't have the commodity of your own bed or snuggling with your kids or
Right.
your wife cooking you breakfast in the morning to make you want to stay home. It's like, hey, I'm
Yep.
here. I got 3 days. Like,
Yep.
I don't have a choice. I got to go.
Right.
So that certainly helps push you in that direction too. Now, to equate all this to kind of the mentality of like no days off and being ready and getting yourself in the right situation to put luck in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
I had at this point I had been boots on the ground in Iowa for the 10 days that I had hunted it. I had flown out it was either like the first week of October or the last week of September of last season to scout and hang cameras. And then I had also been out a March about a year and a half earlier just to walk ground and figure it out because I thought I was going to get drawn and ended up not. Um, where I ended up killing this deer was not a spot that I had scouted ever before. I'd been in there the night before, random spot, just like, hey, I got to try something different. All the areas that I thought were going to work out, um, I just don't have confidence in right now for whatever reason. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I found something on a map and was like, hey, I got to go check this out. So I'd walked in there the night before and gotten about, I don't know what it was, maybe probably just under a half mile from the truck, found a beautiful bottom with a ton of honey locust pods in it that had been chewed up, an old community scrape. And I was like, man, I'm too close to the truck. I don't want to stop here tonight. So I kept going, I kept going, and I kept going. And then I was frustrated that I'd gone so far. And then I got to the point of like, man, I'm wasting one of my last evenings in Iowa. Um, got to the back of this piece of public, was on some good stuff, saw a couple deer, and it's like, all right, maybe not so bad. But then I was like, man, what am I going to do tomorrow morning? And it all came down to like, just guys, like when you see something that could be good, dedicating yourself to going ahead and hunting it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to that spot the next morning after my death march the night before where I felt like I'd gone too far. I went to that first spot where I was like, hey, it all checks off. It's a rut funnel. The wind's right. I found good doe sign. I found an old community scrape. There's a bunch of old big rubs in here. Like, dude, it was literally like the night of. Like, the night before I'd found it for the first time. I'd done that, quote unquote, in season scouting my way in, found the right stuff, and then it all just came together the next morning. And, the right doe got chased through the right pinch point, and I was in there because it had told me like the does are going to be in here, right? And so it was really, the scouting from literally the night before is what paid off the next morning. And all of a sudden the right doe was in there and there were all sorts of bucks behind her.
It's interesting. You just touched on something I don't think I've ever heard anybody really dig into, and that is the idea of when you're on an out-of-state trip like that, like knowing when to stop. Knowing when it's really tough, man. And I went to Kentucky last year, and I feel kind of jaded in a sense because I got like the crappiest weather. The week before and the week after, it was freezing temperatures, and I was in like the mid. It was actually cooler in Tallahassee than where I was in Kentucky when I was in Kentucky, which is total dog water, dude. Just complete. It was terrible, and the whole time, like, it was really hard for me to have confidence that I was on actionable sign, right? It was really easy to be like, well, I've got 10,000 acres to work with. I'll know the sign when I see it, right? Like I'll find the thing and be like, this is where I need to go. And looking back, right? It's my first time in a place like that. Looking back, I found that like day one. In fact, I found it in September. When I went out there on a scouting trip, the guys went and had velvet tags and they were trying to kill a velvet buck. I wanted to scout for my November hunt. And I found it. Like, I found the spot. Looking back, I found a massive shed there. I found just some insanely good rubs in a thicket that was kind of isolated on like this little secondary bench, and it was just loaded with deer sign, scrapes freaking everywhere. And I didn't, and I left it for some reason. I don't like looking back. I don't know why I left that area. Well, I do know why. The winds were coming from the south, and it just swirled in that area, right? They were strong winds. It wasn't like I could just like play thermals for like the better part of a morning, right? But I should have stayed in that area. Like I should have stayed somewhere in that approximate. But I kept looking for that. You hear it talked on podcasts and on YouTube. Like you'll know it when you see it. Well, maybe after you've screwed it up a couple times, right? Like there wasn't like I laid eyes on the buck in his bed, and now I have a game plan, right? Um,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's really tough. It's a delicate balance.
It is, and I'll tell you, it's even harder. Where you and I are used to hunting, where the sign is not as prolific,
Mm-hmm.
the trails aren't beat into the dirt, the scrapes
Mm-hmm.
are half the size. Like it is much harder to do where we live, where it is hunting that fresh sign. But like I will tell you, like one of the things that I've realized in South Carolina is like if I find an inkling of that amount of sign where I'm like, this is a little bit fresher than normal or more potent than normal, or if I hit that, bless you, if I
Mm-hmm.
hit that scrape where I'm like, damn, I can smell this scrape and it's only one scrape
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the woods, I'm like, all right, he's got to be in here. Like it makes sense. It's got to be here. So that actually is a perfect segue into kind of wrapping up my season from last year. Is after I killed this buck in Iowa, I came home, right, and it was obviously like, hey, I've cashed in all my points, all my brownie points for traveling and like any hunting I do between let's call it Thanksgiving and
Mm-hmm.
uh, January 1st is going to be at home, and I've been hunting this same property for 3 or 4 years now, and I've got a few deer that I've chased and kind of have figured out some of the standard things about the property and how the deer act and this that and the other and lo and behold, like I'd been home from Iowa for like a week and a half. So it's first week of December, and one of the deer I've been chasing the last 3 or 4 years pops up on camera. Um, and it's funny. I have been purposefully not in tune with a lot of the recent podcasts and talk about cell cam this and cell cam
Mm-hmm.
that, and like
Mm-hmm.
I use them, and I can tell you that a cell cam killed this deer.
Sure.
Um, I will say, regardless of what all the everything's going on in the conversations about him right now, like good, bad, or ugly, like a cell cam killed this deer. I had a known doe bedding area and a known time of year when I was expecting bucks to kind of circle back around to find yearling does. Which
Mm-hmm.
again, obviously for the guys in the south, like we all know that our rut activity is not concentrated and spread out over a long period of time. At least it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I always see like second, end of the first week, second week of December, there is a little flurry of activity, whether it's in daylight or in dark. It all depends on the weather, but there's a little flurry of activity of a group of bucks, going back out and looking for yearling does, and this is exactly what killed this year. So I want to say it's like maybe December 7th through 10th. I get a picture of this buck, giant 6 pointer. Like he used to be an awesome 9 pointer and then an 8 pointer. And I've got camera pictures of this deer for the last like 4 years. Um, he shows up and I go in and hunt him maybe like I want to say it's like December 15th ish, 16th ish, something like that. It was a rainy day, and I snuck in. That day, I took my rifle. Um, I was sneaking down this pine row, and of course, these are pines that had been thinned, and I was expecting him to be bedded out on this ridge point, and turns out he was actually bedded much closer to the road. I watched him get up out of his bed, knowing that he was in there. Um, he didn't. He must have seen movement, but he didn't bust me completely. I watched him literally stand up out of his bed,
Mm-hmm.
threw some brush, threw the rifle up, tried to get it on him, and he ends up getting away. Never got a shot at him, but like he knew something. He knew somebody was coming in. He beat me. He
Right.
beat me at the game that day, right? Like he was in a bed that put him in an advantageous position to
Mm-hmm.
see me
Mm-hmm.
the way that he would expect a human to approach, and it 100% worked for him. So having seen all that happen, knowing that he was in there, I hadn't gotten any more pictures of him after that, but I knew he was in that area now because I'd gotten a picture of him. I'd seen him with my eyes get up out of his bed and walk off. Um, Long story short, I go in, I wait till the wind gets right. It took about, I think it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks until I could actually go hunt again. Um, and at that point, it was the day after Christmas. It was December 26th. Um, I had a good win for it. had good weather, temperatures had dropped a couple degrees. And long story short, I'm like, hey, I can get in here. I'm going to come in a different way than I have been previously, to where I think I can get in and climb and be prepared for him to get out of his bed. So assuming that he was bedding in the same general area, right? So everybody talks about like these specific buck beds, this specific like tree that a buck beds on. I don't see that. Like I find buck bed, like I could get off on a tangent on this, but like I find buck bed,
do it.
I find deer beds. I do not hunt specific beds. I hunt specific bedding areas, right? So I think a lot of us can agree to that. It's like we'll find beds, like we hear like Infault and all these other guys talk about, like these specific buck beds that are just worn out and beaten into the dirt. Like I find beds that are used more than one time, but I don't find that like wore out thing in the next to a tree in the middle of a swamp that's covered in hair. Like I just don't find that, right? And the reality of it is like where we hunt, like everything is bedding area, right? It's all thick. It could all be bedding area. I'm assuming that this deer is bedding on a point somewhere on this point, right? I don't expect him to be in the same bed that I jumped him out of. Like I was prepared for that, but I wasn't expecting that. Like I knew he would be in the general area. I knew he would probably come off that ridge and move to feed somewhere else and come through the pinch point that I was at. So not hunting rutting behavior, not necessarily hunting like food to bed behavior, but hunting like I know he's going to get out of bed and go somewhere, whether it's to the feeder on the club next door to us or out to chase, to look for a doe, whatever. He's going to get up and he's going to come out of the bedding area, right? So I'm hunting this general ridge point that goes down into a giant creek bottom, and I'm like, hey, with the wind doing what it's going to do, he's going to get up out of bed. He's going to kind of J-hook around into the wind, and it's going to bring him right through the area I'm expecting him to go through. Well, push comes to shove. I go in to hunt. I have the wind doing exactly what I want it to do, and I go in through think like we talk about SMZs all the time. Think an SMZ, except I got in the V of the creek bottom, and basically hunched over, like walked through this thing 300 or 400 yards to the point I had like a terrible cramp when I got to the tree I wanted to climb.
I know exactly the kind of habitat you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, here's the deal: like doing stuff like that is non-standard. It is not what the average guy in the South does. You're not riding your four-wheeler to the base of your tree. You're not stomping down a logging road to the box blind. Like you're doing something that the deer aren't expecting you to do. You're doing something different than everybody else that's hunting them.
Yeah,
you're setting yourself up for success in a different way than everybody else is, right? We all hear that all the time. It works, like it really does. So I hunch down, crawl all the way into this area I want to be, literally take one step out of this creek bed, and there was a massive ditch that came up and basically died, and there's a major trail going around the top of this ditch, coming off of what I was expecting to be the bedding ridge. And so he comes off that bedding ridge after I'd climbed, and it's about 10 minutes before the end of legal at this point, and crosses a little bit lower, honestly, than I was expecting him to with a doe. And he pops up at 43 yards, and I sent my second longest shot on an archery deer ever. The first longest shot was the Iowa deer. I shot at 57. And just absolutely 12 ringed him, man. Like you can't ask for a better shot. I mean, I severed, I hit at least one lung and then cut everything, right across the top of the heart.
Yeah.
At 57, and that was just maybe a miracle. I don't know, like divine intervention, you call it. I don't know. So this South Carolina buck, 43 yards, second longest shot I've ever taken on a deer compared to about a month earlier. And I hit him good as well, and ended up recovering him. Just a big old 100-inch South Carolina 6-pointer, and we aged him at 7.5 years old, which is for where I hunt, is an ancient beast.
That's a very old deer.
It was cool, and I had a ton of history with him. So that was awesome. And then after that, I was pretty much like, hey, I don't need to hunt again. I'm good. So it's been a hell of a season up to that point. A couple does. the Hog Johnson of South Carolina, if you will, and then the Iowa Beast, and getting to sit next to my son while he shot his first one. So it was a pretty epic season that's going to be fairly difficult to top this year, I think.
I was just about to ask, like what do you have planned this year? What are you doing in the no days off, right, to set yourself up for success? Because this could be like, I mean, I'm just going to be honest here. This could be a very anticlimactic like season for you.
No, you're so correct, man. But like, being a Southern hunter, like one of the things that, and I grew up in Missouri, to be fair, like I didn't start hunting until I moved here. And then I married a girl from here, and now I'm stuck, right? So we're gonna squeeze lemons out of, or make lemonade out of some lemons. But at the end of the day, like you got a level set on your expectations.
Right.
And we talked about this a couple years ago, like the whole mantra of Hog Johnson, like killing the big deer for your area or catching the big fish in your stream, is the measure of success, right? So I was actually talking to a guy about this the other day. Like, my measure of success this year is like I've never killed a big buck in September in early bow season. Like, never. Killed some good deer, in my run now. But I've never shot one in September. Like, it's just never happened. So it's like, hey, I could say this season is every bit as good as last season if I kill a 120-inch deer opening day or opening week of archery in South Carolina. Like, dude, that would scratch the itch beyond, maybe even beyond like the Iowa deer. Parker's comment in here. I just watched this pretentious dude pass a stud on Tagged Out Tour. Thank you. Yes, I did do that in the first episode of the Tethered Tagged Out Tour. I don't think I regret it to this point. I then missed a giant non-typical on the last day of the hunt, so there's that. But, so measure of success, right? Like, if I could kill a deer, let's call it a 110-inch 8-pointer opening day of bow season. Like, dude, this season would be every bit as good as last season. If I can, the other measure of success is like, dude, if I can go on national forest and kill a very hard to kill big mature buck, that's, who cares about inches? It could be a ugly ass 6-pointer that weighs 180 pounds. Like, success, like every bit as cool as the 160-inch Iowa giant,
Right.
It's all about where you're hunting and the level of intricacy of the animal that you're hunting, like, that ugly ass 90-inch 6-pointer on Sumter National Forest in South Carolina is probably 30 times more challenging than that 160 in Iowa that I killed. Like, to put it all in perspective, like, you got to think about where you're at and what you're doing, and like, as long as you can level set that and set expectations and know what's realistic for your area, like, that's what gets me fired up now. And it took me a long time to get there, to be really honest. Like, after hunting Kentucky for a few years and understanding like what I could kill out there, and understanding what was going on in Missouri or Indiana or other places, like, it's like, man, that's really cool, but like, that's normal for that area, right? Or that's what's possible in that area. Like, don't hold those standards to where you hunt. Like, have an understanding of what realistic expectations are and like measure yourself to those versus anything else. So for me, again, it's killing one, getting my son on another deer early in the year. It's getting myself a deer with my bow early in the year. Like, that, those are the two things that like I'm really excited about this year. And like, I'm fairly behind in terms of like, as we know, like, life gets busier with kids and having it can be, having a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. Like, dude, I've been plagued all summer with playing chauffeur for camps and taking care of kids all summer and all this, that, and the other. And like, I'm frankly like behind in what like my normal routine is for being ready for deer season. But like, I've built a framework that I know works in the past, and like, that's what I'm going to hold myself to in the next couple of weeks is, maybe I'm a big proponent of cameras. Like, I think they can tell you a lot. Like, I don't hunt based off of cameras all the time, but like, I want to know I want to know that Hog Johnson is in the area that I'm hunting, right? So I I I cast this wide net with cameras, and I'm not right now. Like to make it, to just be brutally honest, like I've got 7 or 8 cameras out right now, where like normally I would want to have 20, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my job for the next few weeks is, get this vacation behind me. My kids' summer camps are behind me. They go back to school like the first week of August or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things are going to start to normalize out, and I might be a little bit behind the power curve, but like the idea is hit the areas that I know I can get pictures of deer at, and here in the net, and it's where it's most important in my opinion, is like what I see in the South is like late July, early August. There is a fundamental shift in these bucks' minds where
Right.
this not scientifically backed, but just from my experience, I see a fundamental shift where things go from a happy bachelor group to an unhappy bachelor group.
Mm-hmm.
That unhappy bachelor group, what it yields is that individual buck will start walking different trails that he's not walking every day for the earlier part of the summer. He
Mm-hmm.
will start to go on little walkabouts, but then he'll join back up with his bachelor group. Um, and that's when I get a lot of pictures of the deer that I want to hunt. So my biggest like thing that I need to focus on over these next 3 or 4 weeks is I like tops of ditches, so I put cameras on trails going across tops of ditches. I put cameras on old community scrapes. I put cameras on really tight trails going through like impenetrably thick brush. Um,
Right.
those are my inventory spots. Like if I'm on, and this is predominantly public, if I'm on the public, that's where my cameras go, is like high frequency spots where when these bucks start to get unhappy in their bachelor groups, they go start to meander
Mm-hmm.
and like think about
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to do in the coming month. Um, and then what I start to see is like if I can find a buck in that area that has shown face on a camera and I know he's there, then I can start to kind of circle in, get a little bit more nitty gritty into what he's doing and how he's acting and like what's going on. Um, so then I'll kind of zero in, right? And that's usually an in season thing for me. I've had the majority of my success in the South October 15th through 30th, more so than any other time, especially in my part of South Carolina. Um, and I just need to know that he's there in that area. Um, so that's kind of how I operate and how I go about things. And I've got a few leads as of right now in terms of deer that I know survived last year on public land. I've got a few leads in terms of like deer that I know survived on my club from last year, which arguably gets more pressure than the public land. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what the next few weeks have in store for me is unplugging from this busy season of life and getting some more cameras and trees.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm adopting probably a pretty similar model to you, so I don't think I'm going to be really going out of state this year. I'm going to stay real close to home. I've got some really great hunting close to home, great for my area, right? Like really
Yeah.
great opportunities here, and I've sent you trail camera pictures of what I've
Yeah.
got, and it's always one of these things where I feel like everybody has to do this. You got to recognize what your resources are and how you can best allocate them, right? How many weekends do you have? And of those weekends, how many times can you get a hunt in? And of those hunts, like how many of them are all day, or you just have to sneak it in before you got to go to a dinner, or a family reunion? And I think it's one of those things where I got really frustrated with last year because I planned some really great hunts and I went to Kentucky, had I think a couple really close encounters where I had one deer come grunting in right behind me. It's a nice buck. I was on the ground because I was just gray light walking my way in, right? Never been there. Could have gone a different way. He could have taken a trail right in front of me. I could have killed something and I would have felt totally different about the situation. But the weather was garbage, and I planned my entire like 2 week time period around the fact of, okay, I got to be a husband, I got to be a father, I got to get a bunch of work done so I can take a week off, and then bad weather ruined it. And it's one of those things where I came back and I was like, there's a home field advantage for me, and that is I can plan to take a week off, and if I need to shift it back and forth a couple days for a weather front, I'm not beholden to traveling all the way to Kentucky, or I can build. Maybe October and November aren't great. There's a lot of times where people are like, well, you only get nocturnal pictures of deer. Well, knowing what's in that area, if I'm out there hanging those cameras and I'm pulling those cameras and I'm doing observation hunts, maybe I'm setting myself up for more success in December. And last year, I got back from Kentucky a couple days early because of terrible weather. It started just pouring down rain, and I busted a couple 100-inch deer off the sides of a cutover. They were right there despite the pressure. They hadn't really shifted because the season had just started. And it was really hard for me to reconcile the fact I just drove 22 hours round trip to not see a deer, and then here I am going home, and a deer I would have shot in Kentucky is right here on the edge of a cutover that I knew was a good area.
Yeah. Yeah, that certainly is challenging. It's like if you know they're there, it gives you that ammunition you need to crawl out of the bed in the morning, as we were
Right.
talking about earlier, right?
Yep.
Like that's what helps me. And then I most of my out of state trips, there's no pre-scouting or things like that, so um, I'm seeing it for the first time, when I'm traveling and looking at it or whatever, right?
Yep.
And it's like that has its own fun elements too, where you don't know what's out there, right? But particularly in the South, where our run-of-the-mill deer is not a 100-inch plus buck, let's call it that. Like
Right.
it's good. I like having that evidence that I know what I'm hunting there, and that I know that I'm in the right area, etc. Um, so yeah, should be fun. It is going to be challenging to kind of rebuild from last season after probably a career high, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I hit the pinnacle in Iowa. That is an absolutely outstanding event that I will be doing again in 6 years or whatever. That everybody should get to experience deer acting like deer. But
Yeah.
the other thing I did start to really appreciate out while I was out there was like, I do actually like hunting at home. Like everybody talks about wanting to get away from their home state and go hunt the bigger, the bigger deer, the next thing. Like hunting at home's fun too. Like I love, knowing your expectations and what is a giant at home versus a giant in Iowa is every bit as cool.
Right.
Um, and like a lot of people lose perspective on that.
Yeah, and the other thing is it was really hard this year not having more deer in the freezer. Like my wife does rely on a lot of ground. Like our goal this year is she wants me to shoot 4 deer. I'm going to remind her of this come deer season. She wants me to shoot 4 deer, and she wants 2 whole of them ground. One of them done into pan sausage, and another one done into a variety of fancier things. But she's going to pull from that all year long to supplement the grocery bill, right? And so it was just kind of like a 1-2 punch. And I think the other thing that I got to be more honest about is I really like my kid, and it's really really hard. It's really hard, dude, to be gone from him for more than like 2 or 3 days. It starts to really wear on me. And I went to Kentucky and I didn't see him for like 5 days in a row, and I couldn't FaceTime him because by the time I got out of the woods, because like you said, it's no days off, right? Like you're not leaving the woods. You're only there for you got 7 days to make it happen, right? And so like 5 days in a row, I don't get to hear or see my kid. I was like, man, like he's 3. Like I'm missing like a real weird window here to be missing as a dad. And so that's another reason why I'm like, if I stay home and I hunt October to February, and even if I hunt the mornings, I feel like I'll get to see him a whole lot more because by the time I get home, he's only been up for a couple hours. I get to see him the whole afternoon. I get to be there for bath time, and I don't think I'm ever going to regret being around my kid more when he's that real young age. Because at some point I'm not going to be cool anymore, and I'll have all the time I need.
Yeah, that's completely fair. There is something to be said though when you get back from that 4 or 5 day, 6 day, 7 day, 8 day, whatever it is trip
Yeah,
being gone, and you're you walk in the door and that kid lights up and he's like, "Dad's home," and he's got
yeah,
a deer or whatever, or even if he doesn't have a
yeah,
deer, it's like, "Dad's home." He doesn't
yeah,
have a deer.
exactly.
So that is every bit as cool of a feeling, as well. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Like I've hit that wall, day 3 or 4 of being gone. And it's like, man, I actually really miss my kids.
yeah,
I'm having a blast, like I'm around the boys and we're having
yeah,
fun. But I do miss my kids. I've been there too. I get it.
yeah, yeah. Well, dude, let's put a pin in this. We're at just shy of an hour and a half. I
Yeah.
appreciate you to know in taking time back to back weeks out of your day and on vacation of all things. Dude. Here's what we should do as you go through your season. this what we've just built is a potential letdown, lackluster season. Let's stay in touch about this, and as it develops, because dude, you're a great hunter. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with it. I follow you. I watch what you're doing because I feel like I learn stuff from you, and I can see the grind. So I know you're going to connect at some point in time. And when that happens, we're going to overlay parts of this episode where we said this was going to be a terrible season, and we're going to talk about that as well. What do you think?
Yeah, to be clear, like no, I don't have the expectations that I had for last season.
Yeah.
I haven't put the legwork in that I did for last season. I don't, I plan to spend a lot more time around home and hunting at home. I am going to sneak in a 5 to 8 day hunt in Indiana this year. Am I going to put the legwork in that I put in for Iowa? No.
Right.
But yeah, I've no doubts I'll connect on something worth talking about. So let's do it. It sounds fun.
All right, guys. Well,
Always
next week is
kill me in a boat.
Yeah, right. Next week is going to be the last week of the No Days Off series. We got 3 really great episodes lined up, and I hope you guys will join us next week for those. And then we'll be back to doing lives every Thursday while we build the next series out. We have got every week planned with a topic through the end of this year, and we've got a really big series coming down the pipe. So y'all get ready for that. I hope you've enjoyed this. The downloads and the shares on social media tell me you do. I'll leave you with this. One small request. If you're still listening an hour and 20 minutes into this, you're probably the guy that needs to hear this. Tell people to subscribe, right? Like 40% of the people who consume our content are actually subscribed, which means even if you like the content, if you found this episode, you're like, these guys are great, then you got to hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, you never know that that we've put more content out there. But no matter what you do, get outside, enjoy the great outdoors, do something, shoot an arrow, sharpen a broadhead, drop a pin on Onyx, something to get ready for the year because you'll be happy that you did.